We got a lot to discuss, man. Welcome to Across the Culture Wars. I'm your host, Brian, and we're going to have to get into this Jack Harlow situation. So without further ado, we're going to get into the video.
White rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre. True or false?
I might have to think about that.
I'd like to hear your answer to Joe's question, but also then talk about what I feel is like the radical twist of what you have chosen.
Well, I'll piggyback off what John's saying. John's saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
black music.
Yeah.
Deeper into blackness.
Yeah.
So was that conscious? Was that a little twist on the typical move that white rappers make, which is to retreat back into traditionally white sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because you like pushing that boundary, that line?
I think I love black music. I love the sound of black
Who
music.
among us?
Yeah, I
it's
love the sound of black music.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm hyper aware of the politics of today, that safer landing spot that a lot of my white contemporaries have found. And of course, it appealed to me to do something that I felt like at a time when there's plenty of people expecting me to take some of the routes y'all are taking.
Yep.
To take the route that not only might not be expected, but is also the one I genuinely want to take. So all the stars aligned in that way for me, to be honest. I'm not going to pretend like what you're talking about. I was like, I guess you're right. I knew that there were multiple things appealing about this route, but I also came to the decision, I'm proud to say, off of what feels good in my ear.
Okay, guys. Wow, that's a mouthful. So on today's broadcast, we are talking about music. So we're going to switch pace for a little bit. Usually I like to kick game. I like to talk about different things going on in our world. But today, you guys, I'm going to focus on the music for a second. And what Jack Harlow said was really interesting. So I'm going to recap that for a second.
White rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre. True or false?
I might have to think about that.
I'd like to hear your answer to Joe's question, but also then talk about what I feel is like the radical twist of what you have chosen.
Well, I'll piggyback off what John's saying. John's saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
black music.
Yeah.
deeper into blackness.
Yeah.
So was that conscious? Was that a little twist on the typical move that white rappers make, which is to retreat back into traditionally white sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing. Absolutely.
Because you like pushing that boundary, that line?
I think I love black music. I love the sound of black
Who
music.
among us?
Yeah, I
it's
love the sound of black music.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm hyper aware of the politics of today, that safer landing spot that a lot of my white contemporaries have found. And of course, it appealed to me to do something that I felt like at a time when there's plenty of people expecting me to take some of the routes y'all are taking.
Yep.
To take the route that not only might not be expected, but is also the one I genuinely want to take. So all the stars aligned in that way for me, to be honest. I'm not going to pretend like what you're talking about. I was like, I guess you're right.
Okay, so he was asked a question: are artists that align with whiteness promoted more? And him being in the genre that's dominated by black people, why did he choose that? Why did he choose that genre, and how did that affect his decision? I think this is an important conversation because it highlights many different contradictions that we have to get into. And I'm going to start by stating that I don't have anything against Jack Harlow. Like, this broadcast is not to demean him or disrespect him. He's just a catalyst for a larger, broader narrative that he seemingly tried to, be political around when he said that he understands the politics. So we're going to get into some of the history, right? And I like to thank everyone for coming to the broadcast.
Black people are mad at me because I said that people of color invented country music and not black people specifically. And you know what I have to say to that? I am sorry. I totally misspoke in that video. I misrepresented the creation and origins of country music as a whole, and I would like to genuinely apologize for the way that I phrased that. Now, I figured today could be a little history lesson for all of the non-black folks out there who did not know that country music was in fact created by black people. Country music originally was a form of storytelling. Now, a little bit of background here. Country music is fundamentally comprised of a few key components: string instruments, storytelling, and simply put, vibes. I don't know about you, but when I think of the banjo, Appalachia, bluegrass, and country music all come to mind. Much like a lot of the instruments that we hear and use today, the banjo was brought to the US by African slaves. They would fashion the banjo and a lot of other stringed instruments out of things like gourds, dry gourds, which is just absolutely fascinating to me. Anyhow, these stringed instruments would be used during the inception of what we know today as blues. And blues was the parent genre of so many styles of music that we hear on the radio today, including country, because of the heavy storytelling that was often found in blues music. And here's the important part. At the time of the inception of country music, black people were not allowed to be in spaces where white entertainment took place. So it was very common for white people to put on blackface and perform this blues-esque music that was created by the African slaves. And get this, the music was so good, even when it was being used as a joke for entertainment, that it started to be taken seriously in mainstream media. So literally, black people created a genre of music, white people stole that music, did it on stage in blackface for entertainment purposes, and the viewers of these racist depictions liked the music so much that it started to gain traction and became a popular music genre. And of course, the credit goes to not black people. And over time, country music has been influenced by other POCs. Spanish music is another example of something that has influenced country music over time. But in my original video, when I said it was created by, I should have said black people. So I'm sorry. I hope this video was insightful and that it taught you something. And I'm
Okay,
excited.
let's get into some of the comments because I see you guys commenting. So someone, Scott, says Beyonce ain't no country artist. Well, she's not traditionally a country artist, but she created a country album, just like what we're seeing with people like Jack Harlow. He's not a traditional hip hop artist, but he makes hip hop music.
White rappers
He's
are afforded
making
more freedom
uh
to change their
he's
genre.
making the
True or
neo
false?
soul
I'm gonna
album,
have to think about
right?
that.
I'd like to hear your answer to Joe's question, but also then talk about what I feel is like the radical twist of what you have chosen.
Well, I'll piggyback off what John's saying. John's saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
Black music.
Yeah.
deeper into blackness.
Yeah.
So was that conscious? Was that a little twist on the typical move that white rappers make, which is to retreat back into traditionally white sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because you like
Okay.
pushing.
So now I'm gonna play another video, then we're going to get into the discussion because what Harlow is saying has opened the door for a larger conversation that I have been wanting to have, and I'm open to other viewpoints. So I'm gonna get to the comments in a second. So a lot of people in the comments are saying stuff like, how you go from Jack Harlow to this? Where I'm going from this because Jack Harlow is a person that they're basically having this same conversation about how black people create music or people that's classified as black create music and is viewed a certain type of way. Then people from the dominant society could come in, copy that music that the black people made, and then it's largely accepted. So it's the same conversation. It's just what angle do you want to take? Just like in the comments, people are trying to basically argue against the fact that black people created country music, blues, bluegrass, hip hop, rock and roll, and this is the conversation that we're going to have.
Well, sure, jazz or rock and roll. I mean, when I'm asking them what American cultural inventions are to the racist, I'm kind of like hoping that they'll respond with something like rock and roll, so I can point out the obvious to them. But yeah, I mean, one of the greatest classes I ever took in my life was called The History of Black Music. It was taught by the
Let me
first black
pause
guy to win a
this
Pulitzer
video for a
Prize for
second.
writing fiction. His
No
name's James
music,
McPherson.
and this is
And
either
so he
true
would
or it's
tell
false.
crazy stories
What
like, like one
music?
day.
What music did people from the dominant society, people classified as WHITE, create that wasn't influenced and didn't borrow heavily from other groups in the United States? You can't say country. You can't say rock and roll. Jack Harlow is now going into soul music. This is all genres of music that we created. And there's nothing wrong with that. Music is inclusive. But what happens is we have a history of why is it when we create genres, we are now treated like guests in our own genres. The creators are now marketed out of the genres that we created. People are in the comments saying that Beyonce isn't a country artist. I never said she was. But the fact that she made a country album and hosted one of the largest country tours just goes back to the roots that the genre was originally ours, along with hip hop. And now in hip hop, we're seeing the same thing. We're seeing people from the dominant society, people like Eminem, G Easy. I mean, it's just so many now that are now basically becoming the face of hip hop. And it's no different than what happened to all of the other genres. So all of this is relevant.
Just talking about how he's interviewing Rich for Playboy in the late 70s, and Pryor's like banging lines of H next to him, and like that was class. But the arc, the narrative of the class was just tracing black music, American black music. So beginning with Negro spirituals during slave times, the call and response, you see the kind of origins of pop music, almost of rock and roll, of kind of chorus and response. And so that moves into the kind of betrayal and the sadness of reconstruction, which is reflected in the blues. The blues kind of branches off into rock and roll and morphs into jazz, and then you have it all coming back around in the pastiche of hip hop, which kind of draws on all of the different elements of the musical traditions of black culture here in America. I mean, American culture largely is black culture in a lot of ways. And I think that drives a lot of the insecurity of whiteness, that they're empty, right? Like art and culture come from suffering and cohesion, and whiteness is about privilege and individuality. And so, I think that's the truth, is that if there are American cultural inventions, they're largely products of black culture that have been hijacked by white culture and commoditized, and that's how you get your Elvises and you get your Eminems and you get the kind of black art forms repackaged and sold by white faces to white audiences, right? And so, yeah, I think, that question is kind of me laying a trap for them. I guess they're smart enough not to take it.
That's not. Someone says that that's AI. This isn't AI. I'm going to show you legends saying this. This is
But
factual.
that was your introduction. So you saw like the like film clips of old blues artists like Lead Belly, who are still alive. Yeah. You got visitors that came repeatedly, like Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee.
Is that how you found?
Yeah, I think Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee was the first blues people I saw when I was really young on TV. Big Bull Brunsey was another one.
And what did you think when you saw him?
Well, I thought it was different, So it's different kind of music and different approach, different feeling.
See, the reason why this is offensive to some people is because we have been made to believe that people that are classified as non-white, people that are classified as black, don't have talent or second class, don't have culture, hasn't created anything. But that's something that you learn in school. That's not real. That's a narrative. In reality, we are the engine and the wild card in the United States. We have created everything. Now, during the period where we were discriminated against and unfortunately enslaved, if you were enslaved, how can the inventions that you're creating to make life better, how can you label it as yours? Because you belong to someone else, right? And this is really how corporations work. If you work for Google or Microsoft and you create a new cell phone technology, the company owns that technology. The engineer doesn't get credit for that. People credit Elon Musk as a genius. Is he really a genius? Who knows? But what we do know, he has enough money and a large enough brand to champion other people's ideas as his own, right? And this is the conundrum of capitalism. And this is why we have to question certain things. But getting back to the music, The music is one of the America's biggest exports, and also it gave the United States the element of cool. When you see rock and roll, movies about rock and roll, hip hop, jazz, soul, blues, country, this is what made America cool. People all around the world, they want to dress like cool. They want to talk like cool. These people that I'm playing in the clip, the Rolling Stones, they were inspired by Muddy Waters. They was inspired by Leadbelly, Nirvana. Kurt Cobain was inspired by African American guitarist legend Hootie Ledbetter from Louisiana, right? And we just have to give proper credit where credit is due, because we don't want to be written out of history. We can share the culture, but we are not going to allow ourselves to be written out of history. Someone in the comments said that's AI. Someone in the comments, when we talk about what we did in this world, other people, and this is where we're headed. We're headed into, not only are we going to be written out of history, but we're going to be treated like guests in cultures that we created. And in the future, people are going to say, when we talk about what we did, they're going to say that that's AI. That's no different than what people do in other forms of history and things that we created. Oh, you guys didn't build this. You guys didn't create that, right? And so we have to confront this with truth. And it's not about being angry, it's about having intelligent conversations. So when you see people from the Rolling Stones saying who they was inspired by, you can't rewrite history. We just recently had this year Wu-Tang is up to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We just had Gene Simmons from the band Kiss state that hip hop should not be part of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Who is Gene Simmons? And I say this because he's not even from the United States. How you going to talk about inventions that we created? This is what I'm saying. People that's not even from the United States, who immigrate to the United States, are trying to make us guess in cultures that we created in the United States. That's colonization, you guys.
different feeling of entertainment. There's a different kind of entertainment
Right.
than the kind of pop singing.
And it's a Muddy Waters, the best of Muddy Waters, and Rockin' at the Hops by Chuck Berry. And this stuff, American music has flooded the world because it actually comes from Africa, from...
So, a lot of people don't know that that the Rolling Stones got their names from Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters, although he's tied to three music genres. Honestly, he's tied to Delta blues, and if you really want to get into it, you can place him in the beginnings of Southern rock music, because he's from the South, he's from Mississippi, and he moved to Chicago in the time where we was transitioning into the industrial age, and we went from acoustics in the South to when we started moving to Chicago, Detroit, New York, in the 50s and the 60s. The sound started to change. Why? Because in industrialization. So then people started playing electric guitars, right? And then we know what happened in the 60s. The 60s, it broke open. But it's been two sides of the United States. It's two Americas that we live in, right? There's two Americas. Those that live like this and those that live like that, right? And my question is, for the people that's living like this is that they're living like this. How are you going to make music that bring people together when you're running around asking people to see their identification? How are you going to make music that's going to bring people together when the whole culture that you created and that's being personified is about exclusion? It's a rock and roll brings people together. Hip hop brings people together. Country music brings people together. Your culture is about, not the total culture, but a large part of it, the dominant part of the culture is about excluding people, creating ghettos in the world, right? Taking resources from people, right? Um, these things are true. And so we have to have this conversation, because when we're talking about this in the future, in modern times, and for sure in the future, people are definitely going to try to rewrite history and say that the music that we created, we didn't create, and that the music genres that we gave our energy to, they're going to put a white face on it, and they're going to treat us as guests in genres that we created, and it's happening in real time again.
White rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre. True or false?
I might have to think about that.
I'd like to hear your answer to Joe's question, but also then talk about what I feel is like the radical twist of what you have chosen.
Well, I'll piggyback off what John's saying. John's saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
Black music.
Yeah.
deeper into blackness.
Yeah.
So was that conscious? Was that a little twist on the typical move that white rappers make, which is to retreat back into traditionally white sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because you like pushing that boundary, that line?
I think I love black music. I love the sound of black
Who
music.
among us?
Yeah, I
it's
love
like-
the sound of black music.
See, the problem that I don't have a problem with what Jack Harlow said, but what's problematic about what he said is that it opens the door. It opens the door for a larger conversation that I want to have, but people in the dominant society don't want to have. See, when you acknowledge what he did wrong and why it's problematic to people who are part of the dominant society, right? It's part of it, it's problem when I say dominant society, it's what I'm talking about. It's problematic for people like this because their whole identity is not acknowledging the music that other people have created, not acknowledging the inventions of other people. So when he says, I love black music, I want to go deeper into black music, he's forcing the world to hold the mirror up and acknowledge where this music comes from. It's nothing wrong with liking Eminem as a rapper. But then we're going to get in conversations where people are going to argue Eminem is the best rapper of all time. How can you be the best rapper of all time, the best hip hop artist of all time, when your ancestors and the roots you didn't create it? You could never be the best. That's not, and I love Eminem's music. I'm not saying it to disrespect him, but it's so many people that came before him that's directly attached to the struggle, the culture of the music. So the why Jack Harlem statement is problematic is because he said, I love black music, and it's people in this world that want to discredit the fact that black people have created amazing things, amazing music genres. If things were just and correct, all of the black artists that created all of these music genres, from gospel to bebop to jazz to hip hop to neo soul to jazz to all of the different forms, right? All of the black artists would be billionaires. All of the black record labels would be trillionaires. You got to think, for the last 100 years, one of the biggest exports have been music, right? People like Fats Domino, early pioneer of music. Let's go to the 2010s. In the 2010s, right? Think about how much music has been stolen from us, right? To not even acknowledge what we have done. A lot of our cities across America would look totally different if we were allowed to keep what we create. But we're in this cycle where we create amazing things and other people take credit for what we have created. So in the music industry, you have two types of publishings. You have the recording side, then on the other side, you have the publishing side. So we're going to get into this, right? So on the recording side is only about 100 or so years old because we haven't been able to record vocals for that long. But the publishing side is actually hundreds of years old. This goes back to Europe 500 years ago. People would write the idea of the song structure, and they would copyright that. And that way, when people would try to play their music, they would have to get royalties from what from their song. Like, hey, that's my song. Pay me for you're playing my song. But now we have the audio side of the music industry, right? So people now can publish. Now, the record labels really deal with the recording masters. When you record a song, who owns that? But then you have the publishing companies, and they own the idea of the song. Two, one coin, two sides. One is the structure and idea of the song. That's one side of publishing. The other side is the recording and the masters, who records, who owns the vocals. Okay, how our music was stolen from us, and how these major labels profit off of us, is that it doesn't matter how talented we are. They are taking the ideas of the song, and they're even owning the vocal recording of the song, and they're doing it in real time. And so I have no problem with what Jack Harlow said. Um, if he wants to make a neo soul album, it's cool. I think who is problematic for is people in the dominant society, because then you have to acknowledge that black people are very talented. Black people have created all of the music genres and much more, not just music, inventions and everything else that have gone to make people's lives in a dominant society comfortable. But we're reaching a point now, and I'm going to say this because I'm a part of the culture. We're tired of other people owning our intellectual property. Our intellectual property is for us, it's not for you. I'm going to repeat that. Our intellectual property belongs to us. Other people should not profit off of our intellectual property. It is a part of our being. So we got to get serious about copyrights. We got to get serious about trademarks. We got to get serious about ownership, because for the last decade, from the 20th century, so much of our greats had their music stolen from them. And then people will get on here and say that black people didn't create blues, jazz, country, and all these other genres, and then treat us as guests in our own music genres. People like Gene Simmons, who is an immigrant to the United States, telling actual Americans that they don't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Come on, man. We really gotta have high self-esteem. When your self-esteem is where it's supposed to be, you won't allow people to play with you. See, a lot of people have low self-esteem. Not all, but a lot. A lot of us have low self-esteem because we've been made to think that the genres that we created is second class, right? What did they call blues music? The devil's music. Well, who is the devil? When you start thinking about what they're saying, okay, if we created the music and they're saying it's the devil's music, who's the devil? You get what I'm saying? You got to go deeper. You got to ask questions, right? So in order to make music that brings people together, that comes from what we call soul, right? But how are you going to make music that brings people together simultaneously promoting things like ice? Historically, it's not going to make sense. If you have a culture that's about exclusion, how can you create music that's about inclusion? It doesn't make sense. And this is either true or is false. Is it true that you are about inclusion? Or is it true that historically your culture has largely been about exclusion? Well, what do you mean it's about exclusion? Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, redlining, redistricting, all of these other things. So right now, ICE running around asking people for ideas. How are you going to have a nightclub or how are you going to have a venue, Bad Bunny's performing at the Super Bowl, and people are saying, yeah, we're going to send ICE to the Super Bowl to arrest people. Your culture is about exclusion. You could have never created rock and roll. Your culture is about exclusion. You could have never created R&B. You could have never created something about bringing people together. And that's not being disrespectful. I think you guys needed us. We helped civilize you to a degree because we showed you what music could be, right? When you are trying to systemically, not on the individual level, but systemically, when you have a military, legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch, passing laws to undermine and subjugate one particular group. We don't want them to read. We don't want them to write. They can't go to school. They have to be regulated to ghettos. When you're treating people so harshly, and then you hear beautiful music coming from them, but the beautiful music isn't coming from you. Why? Because of your behavior. If you change your behavior, you can align to certain frequencies. And right now, our music is under attack. Now let's go to hip hop for a second. Hip hop was created out of desperation and the need to overcome systemic issues, true or false, right? And they put drugs in the community, narcotics in the communities. They sold guns on the streets. We know about what happened in LA during the crack epidemic. We know in LA that the whole campaign was to fund a war in Latin America, right? So it's been these extreme acts of um not just discrimination, just WAR against us. You know what I'm saying? It's been a severe WAR against us on American soil, right? And so we have had, you know, people in power plant seeds of destruction against us, and out of that, somehow we still create stuff that's beautiful. In the early 90s, after everything that had been done to us, we came out saying, fight the power. But if your culture is like this, how can you create something like that? What artist is going to create that? I'm really curious. How are you going to create music about bringing people together, about love is real, about not giving up, about having integrity, right? Having soul when this is your culture?
But that was your introduction. So you saw like the like film clips of old blues artists like Lead Belly who are still alive. Yeah. You know you got visitors that came repeatedly like Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee.
Is that how you found?
Yeah, I think Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee was the first blues people I saw when I was really young on TV. Big Bull Brunsey was another one.
And what did you think when you saw him?
Well, I thought it was different. You know? So it's different.
Hold on. Let me let me respond to one of these comments. So uh Joe Ward says, and I guarantee you guys, if you go to his page, I bet he has about one subscriber. It's always the people who have one subscriber talking the most reckless on the internet. I've noticed a pattern, and because I study patterns, and you may have experienced this too. If when there's someone come to your page trying to troll you, just know they're nobody. When someone comes to your page and hate on you, just know they have like one subscriber on their page. They have no one is even willing to listen to them talk or whatever they have to say. So Joe says, all I hear is woe is me, or really he says all I hear is woo is me. He meant woe is me, right? But here's the thing, guys. The people that you consider the greatest acknowledge how great we are.
Music and different.
The Rolling Stones is named after us. We not named after the Rolling
There's
Stones.
different kind of entertainment than the kind of pop singing.
Yeah, and it's a muddy waters, the best of muddy waters, and Rockin' at the Hops by Chuck Berry. And this stuff, American music has flooded the world because it actually comes from Africa, from
Like this is a conversation that's necessary. So I don't have a problem with what Jack Harlow said. I think what Jack Harlow said is the truth. Like he said he was inspired by black music. Good. But just know that this is our music. And we're going to continue to profit off of that. If we would have owned the publishing, the masters of the greatest music that we've ever made from after slavery. Let's just deal with after slavery, right? From 1870 to 2026. That would have totally erased all of what they did to us during slavery for the most part because we would have profited off of our inventions. Our problem is we haven't found a way to keep the supremacists out of our mix. And I'm one of the ones that's willing to say that. I'm not saying that as a means to preach hate. No, because I don't believe all of them are supremacists. But I believe that the people who are have more power than the ones in their society that are not. I'm going to repeat that. I don't think all of them are like that. I think that the ones who are the most powerful are like that. And the ones who are not, seemingly, they don't have enough power to stop the ones who are supremacists, right? And we can see this from the way that they create neighborhoods and ghettos. We can see this by the way that they can take a perfectly good community, thriving communities that we had in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and turn them into this, right? And so we could create these beautiful genres because it's something in us that's beautiful. No matter that, a lot of the way that we act and the things that we see has been imposed on us. It's really not. It's like you have nature and then you have nurture versus nature. Your nature is who you are at the core. The nurture is what can be impacted by the environment, how the environment affects you. Our environment has not been the healthiest. So even with that, we still created beautiful music. Even with in the depths of Jim Crow, we created Muddy Waters. We created Sister Rosetta Tharpe. We created Fats Domino. In the grips of segregation, in the grips of having the whole world telling us you're on your own. Nobody's coming to help you. We created beautiful music. We gave our children something to aspire to. You guys got the whole world. And what are you doing? So, how could you create that? You can't. Because it's what we have, you don't have, in my opinion. But you can imitate it, but you don't have it in you, right? And it's, listen, it's in us. It's not on us. It's in us. 100 years from now, I could predict it's still gonna be in us. They can't take it away from us, right? And it's like Bob Marley has a song, and he says, "We refuse to be what you want us to be." Okay, so let's get back to some of the music history for a second.
Feel like jumping overboard, drown. Up on 1927. Yeah, that's been a long time. I started off as a water boy. Water boy, bring your water around. Don't like your job, set your bucket down. All that old stuff. Some of them hollering and singing the blues out there. I said, Lord, sometimes it gets hot. You got to wake good then. Oh, in them long, hot summer days. Would that would be June, July, and
you listen to the sound of black singing in any particular historical moment, right? You get a greater sense of what's happening in terms of black life. And a lot of that obviously is rooted in language, right? In the use of words and the use of sound.
you got a good cotton crop, but it's just like shooting dice. Now you gonna work the whole year round, buddy, yet the cotton won't be no price. Further on down the road.
So that music, as the generations progress, actually turned into some of the modern music that we have. Now, a lot of people, or I'm not going to say a lot of people are slow, but a lot of people, you got to spell it out for them. That's no different than listening to Rod Wave or listening to NBA Youngboy or listening to Young Dirk. The same music that they are the grandchildren of these people. They are the great grandchildren of these people. That's why I'm saying, in my opinion, Jack Harlow or Eminem, they can be guests in the culture. They could come sit at the table, but they could never be the greatest because it's a long line of this. And the reason that I say this is because These people are the ancestors that we get a NBA YoungBoy, that we get a Rod Wave, that we get a Lil Durk, or that we get a Kanye West, or that we get a Jay Z, or we get a J Cole or a Kendrick Lamar. Okay, so I can never say that somebody that didn't come from where I came from, that didn't experience the same trauma that I experienced, who grandparents wasn't in those fields picking cotton, who mother or father wasn't the first generation to go to college, who grandfathers and great grandfathers fought in the Civil War, the First World War, the Second World War, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and came back home and was discriminated against. I could never say that they the greatest because they haven't experienced enough adversity of what someone else had to experience in order to reach that level. And I think it's a beautiful thing that Jack Harlow said what he said, and I respect him for saying it. I love that he said it. I'm gonna play what he said for a second.
White rappers are afforded more freedom to change their genre. True or false?
I might have to think about that.
I'd like to hear your answer to Joe's question, but also then talk about what I feel is like the radical twist of what you have chosen.
Well, I'll piggyback off what John's saying. John's saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
black music.
Yeah.
Deeper into blackness.
Yeah.
So was that conscious? Was that a little twist on the typical move that white rappers make, which is to retreat back into traditionally white sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Because you like pushing that boundary, that line?
I think I love black music. I love the sound of black
Who
music.
among us?
Yeah.
So hold on, let me pause it. So you see the uncomfortable laughter just now? He said something. You gotta peep body language, right? If you got game, you could peep. If you have game, you could peep body language. That was a nervous laughter. Jack Harlow said something that was off code in their society. He gave props to black people. You're never supposed to do that in supremacist culture. You're never supposed to acknowledge the greatness of black people, unfortunately, right? You're supposed to act as though that you invented this, not that you copied it. You're supposed to act as though you're the master, not that you're the student. But all of them are really students, right? In the midst of us having limited freedoms, they were still students. And what I give them credit for, and we should learn to be more like them in this regard, is this is our problem, in my opinion, and I could be wrong. But what I see as our problem is we often are in a situation where we're always creating, and we create so much stuff. We're so creative, we put certain stuff to the back burner. Guys, these people study us. I need you to hear me. These people study us. They have entire college courses, the London Museum in London, the British Museum in London, the Berlin Museum, right? They study us. They study what we did 2,000 years ago. They study what we did 100 years ago. We don't spend enough time because we're constantly focusing on survival. We don't study us the same way. I play the guitar. Okay, I play the acoustic guitar, right? One day I'm on the internet and I'm looking up music on the guitar. A little side story, but stay with me. So I'm looking up. I wanted to learn how to play Bob Marley song, Three Little Birds, and very simple chorus: A, 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 D, A, 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 D, E. Very simple song. Okay, I seen literally 20, 30, 40 videos of people in a dominant society showing other people how to play Bob Marley song. I had to search through it to find a Jamaican teaching how to play Bob Marley songs. This is what I'm saying. We create so much stuff, we move on to the next creation, right? Whereas they're studying what Bob Marley was doing in 1978. Today, in 2026, they're studying what Marley was doing in the 70s. in 2026, they're studying what Muddy Waters was doing in the 40s and the 50s and 60s. See, this is where we got the game messed up. We got to go back to our roots. We got to become students of the game. So I'm not angry at them. I got to tip my hat to that. What they doing is player. What they doing is why they are in positions of power, because we learn to disrespect our legends. We say, oh, with our legends, this is how we do our legends. Our hip hop legends, we say they too old. We throw them away. Meanwhile, in the Diamond Society, that they'll go pay to see the Grateful Dead or go pay to see the Who at 80 years old. So they study us. We don't study us. And what he said in this interview, getting back to the point, is that when Jack Harlow acknowledged that he was inspired by black people, that's why it's problematic. It's not problematic for us. He tilted his hat to us. It's a compliment to us, but it's problematic to people in the dominant society, because you're in one rule of being a supremacist is you're never supposed to acknowledge the greatness of non-whites, and that's either true or it's false.
White sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing. Absolutely.
Because you like pushing that boundary?
Super aware of the politics of today, that safer landing spot that a lot of my white contemporaries have found. And of course, it appealed to me to do something that I felt like at a time when to take the route that not only might not be expected, but is also the one I genuinely want to take. So all the stars aligned in that way for me, to be honest. I'm not going to pretend like what you're talking about, I was like, I guess you're right. I knew that there were multiple things appealing about this route, but I also came to the decision, I'm proud to say, off of what feels good in my ear.
He said they asked him, I'm going to have to play the clip again. They asked him about why did he choose to basically make black music instead of white music. He said, because I love black people's music. The guy he did a nervous laugh, because what Jack Harlow said is problematic for people in the dominant society. You're never supposed to acknowledge the greatness of people that we are subjugating, that we're taken from. You're supposed to act like you invented this.
White rappers
He was
are
off code
afforded more freedom to
for
change
them.
their genre. True or false?
I might have to think about that.
I'd like to hear your answer to Joe's question, but also then talk about what I feel is like the radical twist of what you have chosen.
Well, I'll piggyback off what John's saying. John's saying you didn't retreat into a whiter genre. In fact, you arguably went deeper into
I got blacker.
Black music.
Deeper into blackness.
Yeah.
So was that conscious? Was that a little twist on the typical move that white rappers make, which is to retreat back into traditionally white sounds?
It certainly made what I already wanted to do even more appealing.
Listen closely.
Absolutely.
Because you like pushing that boundary, that line?
I think I love black music. I love the sound of black
Who
music.
among us?
Yeah, I
it's
love
like-
the sound of black music.
That was a nervous laughter,
and
guys.
of course, I'm
That
hyper
was
aware
a
of
nervous laughter, because when he said
the
that he
politics
loved
of
black
today,
music,
that safer landing spot that a lot of my white contemporaries have found.
so the name of the game is this. This has been a play for us for the last 100 years, really. We could go 100 years ago, because in 1920s the same stuff going on. People in the dominant society come see what the people with the underclass, because we're considered the underclass. Come see what we're doing. Take what we're doing, bring it back to your audience. Either act like you invented it, or completely not even acknowledge who you got it from. The Beatles, the Who, all of the so-called classic rock greats. Who did they get their sauce from? Who did all of these British bands get inspired by? They got inspired by the Black Americans. This is either true or it's false. If I'm wrong, please correct me. Right? If I'm wrong, please correct me. But I know that I'm correct. And I come correct. And I stand in truth. Because I don't ever want to say anything that's going to be false.
but that was your introduction. So you saw like like film clips of old blues artists like Lead Belly who are still alive. Yeah. You got visitors that came repeatedly, like Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee.
Is that how you found?
Yeah, I think Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee was the first blues people I saw when I was really young on TV. Big Bull Brunsey was another one.
And what did you think when you saw him?
Well, I thought it was different, So it's different kind of music and different approach, different feeling of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
It's different kind of entertainment than the kind of pop singing.
And it's a muddy waters, the best of muddy waters, and Rockin' at the Hops by Chuck Berry. And this stuff, American music has flooded the world because it actually comes from Africa, from...
It's like, I'm going to be honest, man. Seeing people like Jimi Hendrix, seeing people like Ernie Isley, so many others, the Ohio players, all of the soul bands. See, rock split due to segregation. So because of segregation, what ended up happening, you couldn't label this group with that group. So if you were a black group or a group classified as black, you went under the R&B and soul charts, funk charts. If you were in a dominant society, they labeled you as rock, right? They labeled you as country, right? So they compartmentalized the different genres, even though originally all of the genres was coming from the same source, right? They later branched off into different trees, right? And it's so much that we innovated in this culture. Our polyrhythms, stressing which beat you're going to stress. Are you going to stress the 1 and the 3? And that gives the songs like a marching vibe, right? Or you going to stress the 2 and the 4? That gives it like a groove or R&B vibe. Or you're just going to stress the 1, right? And then that gives it a funk vibe, right? Or you're going to do ghost notes, right? Where you're tricking them to a degree, like which beat is going to come next, right? Give it that lucid feel. Or you're going to stress the down beats, and then that gives you like the reggae vibe. So the way that we changed the rhythm, it changed the way that the music was made. And I believe that we were able to do a lot of this because a music theory book and music theory, and if you guys ever was in band, I was in band. If you were ever in band, music theory is really based on European ideology. If you get to the core of it, is trying to make other people say that your sound is the best. That's the core of music theory. There's different music theories, by the way. How they teach music theory in India or the Far East is not the same music theory that's taught in the West. A lot of people don't know this, right? So we are the music theory. They study us. You don't need a book necessarily. I'm not saying don't learn music, don't learn scales, don't learn these things. Though all of those things are important. We invented that. But what I'm saying is it's something extra. For example, a person could learn how to play a Bob Marley's song, a Bob Marley song, but it's not going to make you Bob Marley. You get what I'm saying? You could learn how to drum like Carlton Barrett of the Wailers, but you're not going to play the 1-drop pattern. You get what I'm saying? It's levels to this. You could learn how to dance. You're not going to be James Brown. You're not going to be Chris Brown. It's something extra there. You get what I'm saying? And that's what people have to understand. They copy us, but it's something extra there. Right? And it's a beautiful thing, man. We're living in a world right now where the vibrations are changing. The vibrations are changing, and I think that it's important for people to understand that we just not going for it anymore, man. Give credit where credit is due. Acknowledge what we created. If you want to be an ally to us, don't try to profit our ideas as your own. Have respect for our culture. Don't try to make us seem like we're guests in genres that we created. You know, don't try to make us guess. Like they always trying to make us guess. You're a guess. We're not guests. We're the main attraction. And don't try to just relegate us to hip hop. We are in so many different genres, not just rap, not just hip hop. And if you're a parent, teacher, let your kid hop on some instruments. Buy your kid a drum set. Buy your kid a piano. Get them off the tablet. Go get them some good. Go get them. Go buy a. You could go get a guitar for $200, right? Learning music is equivalent to learning a second language. When you learn how to express yourself musically, your vibration changes. It changes the way you think. You become more in tune with life. You're in rhythm with life. You're not fighting the beat. You're not fighting the harmony. You learn how to move in cohesion, right? And I believe that as black people, we got to understand that these people study us. We don't understand that we're being studied. And what we do with a lot of our greats, we throw our greats away. We we're so competitive. We allow our greatest, the people that paved the way, and that's on us. That's not on them. That's on us. We gotta honor the greatest among us. We gotta say, you know what? The ancestors that led the way and the greats among us, we gotta learn to honor them. We got to hold them to such a pedestal, not because they're perfect, but because they led the way for us. Now, while we're not studying Muddy Waters, they are studying Muddy Waters. While you're not studying the artists that came before you, you might say a rapper is too old to rap. We'll say Nas is old. Nas is one of the greatest artists of all time, right? And he's directly connected to this. His dad is Olu Dara, who is also a musician. This is what I'm saying. We come from a long line of this, right? And so while we're not studying us, they are studying us. And that's why they have been so successful against us, is because you don't know who you are, but they know who you are.
Black people are mad at me because I said that people of color invented country music and not black people specifically. And you know what I have to say to that? I am sorry. I totally misspoke in that video. I misrepresented the creation and origins of country music as a whole, and I would like to genuinely apologize for the way that I phrased that. Now, I figured today could be a little history lesson for all of the non-black folks out there who did not know that country music was in fact created by black people. Country music originally was a form of storytelling. Now, a little bit of background here. Country music is fundamentally comprised of a few key components: string instruments, storytelling, and simply put, vibes. I don't know about you, but when I think of the banjo, Appalachia, bluegrass, and country music all come to mind. Much like a lot of the instruments that we hear and use today, the banjo was brought to the US by African slaves. They would fashion the banjo and a lot of other stringed instruments out of things like gourds, dried gourds, which is just absolutely fascinating to me. Anyhow, these stringed instruments would be used during the inception of what we know today as blues. And blues was the parent genre of so many styles of music that we hear on the radio today, including country, because of the heavy storytelling that was often found in blues music. Now, here's the important part. At the time of the inception of country music, black people were not allowed to be in spaces where white entertainment took place. So it was very common for white people to put on blackface and perform this blues-esque music that was created by the African slaves. And get this, the music was so good, even when it was being used as a joke for entertainment. Black people are mad at me because I said that people
So
of
so
color
so
invented
so
country
that's the
music and
truth,
not
man.
black people
Like that's just the
specifically. And
truth.
you know what I have to say to
Like I'm
that?
so glad that
I
somebody
am
said it.
sorry. I
I
totally
like to
misspoke.
find videos. Hold on. I like to find
The
videos
creation
like
and
in my
origins of
videos.
country
I'm
music as a whole,
excuse
and
me. In my videos, I like to when I make videos, I am doing video essays. This is a form of a video essay. Okay. So I like to get it straight from the source. So you got primary sources, that means people who lived it, right? A primary source is people who lived it. A secondary source is someone who didn't lived it, but heard of it in the same time period, right? We got to go back to the basics, right? So when I'm saying this and I'm giving you a primary source, this is an example of a primary source.
Feel like jumping over bowling ground. I'm on 1927. Yeah, that's been a long time. I started off as a water boy. Water boy, bring your water around. Don't like your job, set your bucket down. All that old stuff. Some of them hollering and singing the blues out there. I said, Lord, sometimes it gets hot. You got to wake good then.
So I'm not telling you something that I'm imagining. I'm telling you, I'm reporting to you what the people who lived during that period, what they said. When I tell you that the black people created all of these music genres and a lot of it, they were written out of history, I'm not just saying that because that's what I think. I'm telling you what the people who
But
participated in it said.
that was your introduction. So you saw like the like film clips of old blues artists like Lead Belly who are still alive. Yeah. You got visitors that came repeatedly like Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee.
Is that how you found?
Yeah, I think Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee was the first blues people I saw when I was really young on TV. Big Bull Brunsey was another one.
And what did you think when you saw him?
Well, I thought it was different, you know. So it's different kind of music and different approach, different feeling of entertainment. You know, it's different kind of entertainment than the kind of pop singing.
You know, and it's a muddy waters, the best of muddy waters, and Rockin' at the Hops by Chuck Berry. And this stuff, American music has flooded the world because it actually comes from Africa, from...
You know, so a lot of times, man, you just have to confront miseducation with truth. A lot of times, guys, they're not going to want to tell you the truth because to tell you the truth is to turn the lie on his head when billions of dollars, like, I don't know if you understand this, but Public Enemy, they had an album titled It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. Who do you think are the millions that they're talking about? Right? Think about what for a second what the black Americans were able to do in a country that they are an extreme minority on. Okay, there in America, we are an extreme minority. Is over 200 million people in the dominant society. Statistically, it's only about 40 million of us. That's insane. But yet we have airports in New Orleans like Louis Armstrong Airport. You got airports in Kentucky named after Muhammad Ali. You got city streets named after Dr. Martin Luther King. To say that we have only been 10% of the population, man, we done made this country nearly in our image. Imagine what we would do if we were free. Do you think that people would really be struggling? Do you think for a second that if we were in control and we're not in control, that we would be telling mothers that they don't deserve food to eat, clothes to wear, shoes on their feet? Do you think that we would be telling people you 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 can't do this, this is against the law. You can't do that, that is against the law. I think that we'll be promoting justice, especially if we can get to where we're supposed to be. But as we see, you have these people running around here causing chaos. So there's two Americas. And within the America, there's two totally different ways of life. You got this way of life, and then you got this way of life. And it's interesting to see which will win out. And it's been a battle because the two energies cannot coexist. Because hate and love cannot coexist. It just can't. And I think that it's time that we give love a try. How many more world wars do we need? Every day you turn on the television and they're talking about nuclear weapons. You know what I'm saying? In the 60s, what was the soul brothers and soul sisters saying? Make love, not war. And in modern times, which side has won? This is what I'm saying. So how could they have created it if their entire ideology is war on the planet? Thank you guys. That's been my broadcast. Thank you for joining in. I appreciate it. Peace. We up, baby. No, you can't give up. You gotta just keep going. Like, I would never give up. I just tell people just to keep going. But I think so many people give up. That's why when I speak, I try to speak with authority. I try to tell them like, hey, don't give up. Keep rocking. You know what I mean? Hate been dominating the airways for so long. So when we resist that, some people view the resistance as hate. Nah, if you're trying to attack me and not defend myself, that's not the same as me attacking you. You attacked me. I'm getting you off of me, right? But we have to be careful because we don't want to become like people that are doing the bad things. We have to reserve a space that's peaceful. So I could dig the nonviolent movement too, because it's like you don't want to become like the very people that you're trying to get away from. But I think we're gonna come to a place on the planet where it's gonna be this or that. You know what I'm saying? Because personally, I don't want to live on a planet where I don't have justice. To me, if I had the choice to have a shorter life but have justice, or live 100 years and have injustice, I choose the shorter life. You're not going to. Why would I want? That's a prison. Why would I want to live longer and is no justice? Longer life only makes sense if we're going to have justice. And I think that this is the vibration that we got to get on. Is justice or injustice? Is that the people who need the most help receive it? Is that people get treated the way that they supposed to be getting treated? Or we're just going to live in a world where we're ran by the worst among us? We're going to be ran by people that are tyrants. People that have no care for humanity. They don't care if the babies have education. They don't care if the kids have food to eat. They don't care if the women have vitamins for the babies that they're carrying in their stomach. Look what we're seeing on the planet. So when I see this, I'm like, dang. Am I the only one that's feeling this energy that's out here? Come on, man. And I believe that the Black Americans, I believe this is what I truly believe. I believe when we give up, that's when it's over. Because it seems as though we've been the only ones that's been standing 10 toes down against the greatest force on the planet. Imagine what goes on when this evil empire leaves and goes overseas. We're in the belly of it. And it ain't nowhere for us to run to. It's nowhere for us to hide. So when they come, we not running. And we're up against an ideology. It's a thought process we have to get over. We have to, it's either what ideology is going to win the future. justice or injustice. And when the next society is created, I don't want to live in a society, or I don't want my great grandkids to live in a society where, okay, this system is over with, but then there's another system that comes out and people are still being mistreated. No, we need a society where nobody is mistreated. We need a world where nobody is mistreated. And it's so crazy, people will call that, oh, you believe in a utopia. It'll never happen. You got to get rid of that ideology, man. What's so wrong with people not being mistreated? It's like people are pro mistreating people. Yeah, let's find out who can we mistreat. If you say, hey man, I don't believe nobody should be mistreated, you're instantly the bad guy. They're going to find a way to use your words against you. But we ride at dawn.